In this video, I'm going to show you how to work the eyelet stitch that's featured in my Rosanna cardigan. This eyelet stitch is just a simple mini eyelet chevron stitch, and it takes 4 rows to create one of these motifs. In my demo here, I am working the eyelet motif in between these 2 stitch markers. So let's start row 1 of this eyelet stitch. First, I'm going to just work to my first marker. Okay, I'll slip the marker, and so now we're going to begin row 1 of the eyelet stitch. And it's worked as follows. First, you're going to knit 1, then you're going to yarn over. And so to yarn over, you're going to bring the yarn from the back of the work to the front in between the 2 needle tips, and then over the top of the right needle so that it's positioned in the back of the work again. Just like that. Then it says to SKP, which stands for slip, knit, pass. So first we're going to slip. So we're going to insert the right needle into the next stitch on the left needle knitwise. So you're going to go into the stitch as if you're going to knit it, but then you're just going to slip it onto the right needle without working it, just like that. Then we're going to knit 1. And then we're going to pass the slip stitch over the stitch we just knit. So to do that, we're going to insert our left needle into the second stitch in on the right needle. That was the stitch that we had slipped. And then we're going to lift it up and over that stitch we had just knit and then off of the needle. So that is how you work an SKP. Then it says to knit 1, then knit 2 together. So to knit 2 together, you just take your right needle and insert it knitwise into the next 2 stitches together, just like that. And then you're going to knit them together. Then we have 1 more yarn over. So just like we did with the first one, we're going to bring the yarn to the front of the work in between the needle tips and then just over the top of the right needle positioned in the back of the work again. And then the last stitch is just a knit 1. Okay, so we've done row 1 of the eyelet stitch. I'm just going to now work to the end of my row here. Okay, so I'm going to turn my work. So now we have the wrong side facing us. And row 2 is nice and easy. So first I'm just going to purl to my eyelet marker. Okay, so I'm going to slip my marker. So now we're working on row 2 of the eyelet stitch pattern. And all you have to do on row 2 is purl all the stitches. That's it. So it's nice and easy peasy. Okay, so I'll slip my marker and then I will just work to the end. Okay, I'll turn my work. And so now we're ready to do row 3. So first let me just work to my first eyelet stitch marker. Then I'll slip my marker, and so now we're working on row 3 of our eyelet stitch. So row 3 starts with a knit 2. Then we work a yarn over. So again, bring the yarn in between the 2 needle tips to the front of the work and then over the top of the right needle. Then it says to SK2P. It's similar to the SKP. We're going to slip, but then instead of knitting 1, we're actually going to knit 2 together and then pass the slip stitch over. So let's first do our slip. And so we insert the right needle into the next stitch on the left needle, knitwise and slip it. And then we're going to knit 2 together. And then we're going to pass that slip stitch over the knit two together. So insert your left needle into the second stitch in on the right needle and lift it up and over that last stitch, which was the knit two together. Then we're going to yarn over again. And then we end with a knit two. Okay, then I'll just slip my marker and I'm just going to work to the end of the row. So I'll turn my work and then we'll be working on row 4. Now row 4 is just like row 2. So first I'm just purling to my eyelet stitch marker, and then I'll show you, I'm just going to purl all the stitches in my eyelet stitch motif just like we did on row 2. Okay, so I'm on my eyelet stitches now and I'm just going to purl all the stitches. I'll slip my marker and now I'll just work to the end. And so that is it. Those are the 4 rows in the eyelet stitch pattern. So the only rows where you're actually working any of the yarn overs and decreases is row 1 and row 3. And in my Rosanna pattern, you'll notice that anytime you work an eyelet row, that I will specify whether it's a row 1 of the stitch pattern or the row 3 of the stitch pattern. And this just helps you to become more familiar with which of those 2 rows of the stitch pattern you're working. So that is how you work the eyelet stitch that's featured in my Rosanna cardigan.